If diving in the longest underwater cave system in the world sounds like something you'd like to do, you absolutely need to go to the Yucatan Peninsula. Hi there, my name is Luz Manillo and I'm a PADI certified advanced open water scuba diver living in Melbourne. Today, I want to share with you a couple of amazing adventures that I recently had at the Yucatan Peninsula sinkholes in Mexico. I will be reviewing two sinkholes, namely the sinkhole Angelita and Maravilla. The Yucatan Peninsula is actually home to one of the most amazing underwater cave systems in the world. It actually has the two longest underwater cave systems known to date. The longest one is the system Oxwell-Ha, which is 524 kilometers long and has more than 150 cenotes, or sinkholes. And that is so far, because guess what? We're still exploring it. This is one of those regions of the world where, like, you thought we had discovered everything. Well, no. We're still exploring this underwater cave system and there's still a lot to be mapped out. So imagine that. This is just the one that we know. The second one is the Sistema Zacactun, which actually houses some of the most famous diving sinkholes out there, including the sinkhole Dos Ojos. And this one's really interesting because it's, again, more than 300 and something kilometers long, so huge in and of itself, and they've actually found some pretty cool discoveries in it. Explorers have found multiple skeletons in pristine conditions that date back more than 13,000 years. So this cave system has actually become a really good source for historical knowledge as well. So they're amazing, and the great thing is we get to go dive in them. Now, I think the hardest thing when you go to the Yucatan Peninsula is actually choosing which sinkhole to dive in. As I mentioned, some of these underwater cave systems are huge, and I mean, they're still discovering more every day. So I've come across multiple sources. Some of them say there's 3,000 cenotes out there, some of them say 6,000. It's just ridiculous. And that also means there's plenty of choices for you to dive in. I think in terms of like open to tourists, there must be, I don't know, I lost count, but maybe 100? Like, it's hard to choose, is what I'm trying to say. So actually, I think a good way to choose where to go is depending on where do you want to stay. So essentially, think of the Yucatan Peninsula as this kind of like long road. And on the far east side, you have Cancun and things like Holbox, for example. And like choosing where to stay really will depend on what you like to do and what kind of person you are. If you're into parties, nightclubs, bars, all-inclusive hotels, and things like that, Cancun will be perfect for you. So it's probably the most well-developed area in the region, and it's very much catered towards tourism. So expect like, all-nighters, things are open quite late, everything's at the palm of your hand, like everything's close by. Now, from Cancun though, the cenotes are not that close. So there are diving operators in Cancun, but some of them, if you're wanting to go to a sinkhole that's closer to Tulum, that's quite a long drive. That's like a 2 to 3 hour drive to get from Cancun to Tulum, where some of these cenotes are. Then if you keep kind of going west on the highway, the next kind of big-ish town would be Playa del Carmen, which is still very touristy, but not as grandiose as Cancun, if you want to look at it that way. Playa del Carmen is probably a good place to stay because you're kind of like in the middle, so you can go to places that are around there or towards Tulum. Some of the most famous sinkholes like Dos Ojos and the Sistema Zacactun actually are very close to Playa del Carmen, so I would suggest Playa del Carmen as a potential place to stay, and there's plenty of diving operators that go out from there. And then if you keep going, you can also stay in Tulum. Tulum is now catering more towards that kind of like eco-friendly, everything's wood, the streets are not paved, there's kombucha and acai bowls and organic stuff. So more of a hipster vibe, if you know what I mean. So if that's your scene, getting on a bike and doing yoga in the mornings, probably Tulum is the place that you want to be at. And again, plenty to do around Tulum, plenty of sinkholes to go to, and you also have the Shankan Natural Reserve very close by. So all of these places are beautiful. It's just a matter of like what caters to your person and what's closer to where you want to go, essentially. I would suggest definitely stay close to where you want to go because taxis in Yucatan are ridiculously expensive. I made the mistake of staying in Cancun, wanting to go to Angelita, which was all the way close to Tulum, and when I quoted a taxi, it was going to be like, I don't know, like $150 like one way, like US. It was going to cost me more to take the transport than to actually do the dive, which if you're a diver, it's not cheap, you know? So yeah, I would suggest stay close to where you want to go and find an operator there that can take you. Now, budget-wise, as I mentioned, Cancun can be quite pricey. I mean, if you're looking for more like cheap accommodation, I would suggest looking at Playa del Carmen better. Tulum can also be quite pricey, sadly, but there's something for everyone, so it will depend on your budget. Diving is expensive, but that's true for most places. So for two dives, you're essentially looking at around $200 USD for that day. Something important that I would suggest though is make sure to bring some cash with you, because Mexico is not yet like FPOs everywhere. And for example, some cenotes charge if you want to bring your camera with you and things like that, and they will not take card payments. Usually for camera permits, it's like 20 to 30 bucks. So just bring some cash. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. If you want to go to Angelita from Cancun, it's going to be more expensive than if you go with an operator that's closer by. So that's why I also suggest staying close to where you want to go out, because the price of the actual dive will be cheaper because there's like less hassle in terms of transport, and also you'll have more time because you won't spend 3 hours getting there, you know? So how do you get there? Like, regardless of where you decide to stay, you will have to fly into Cancun. That's the easiest way to get there. And once you're in Cancun, you can, if you're staying at a fancy hotel, sometimes the hotels will have like transport to pick you up from the airport and take you to the accommodation. But if not, I suggest that you rent a car. Car rentals are actually quite cheap, maybe around the $60 to $100 per day. And considering the taxes, as I mentioned, can be like $150 one way, it's a really good investment to hire a car and just not have to rely on transport otherwise. Now, again, depending on your level, there's sinkholes for everyone. If you're looking for an entry-level friendly sinkhole, I would suggest Dos Ojos or Chacmun. They're both not very deep. I think like they do go down to like 12 meters depth, roughly 12, 15. But they're not too deep, and they kind of cover, like Chacmun specifically, I think covers a bit of everything. Like you can see a little bit of the hydrocline at one point. You do go under tunnels. You have the beautiful like light beams. So it's a good kind of like taster of all that there is out there. Dos Ojos is also one of the most popular ones because you have two sinkholes connected in a tunnel as well. So if you're entry level, I would suggest checking out those. The two sinkholes that I'm reviewing today are more tailored towards advanced divers because they are quite deep. Now, Angelita. Cenote Angelita is world famous for its surreal and eerie feeling. It has been described as one of the most unique places you will go diving anywhere in the world. And the reason for this is because it is a very deep sinkhole. Both Angelita and Maravilla, the two that I'll be speaking about today, go down to 60 meters depth. So they're quite deep. Obviously, as a tourist, not a technical diver, you won't be going down to 60. You probably will be going down to around 30 something meters deep. And with Angelita, it's quite stunning because you go down, and once you hit around 30 meters, there's this literally underwater river made of hydrogen sulfide that just kind of like appears to you like a cloud, essentially. And then the beautiful thing is that there's fallen trees at that level. So there's kind of this island that comes up from this cloud with some dead trees in it. Essentially what you'll do with the dive, if you go to Angelita, is you'll get there, you'll jump into the sinkhole, you'll go down, and you'll just keep going down, down, down. And to maximize the dive, what you will do is, like, once you get to that layer, you'll keep going down and cross the hydrogen sulfide layer. And once you get down there, it's quite stunning. Like when you're within the cloud, you can't see anything. It's dark as darkness, pitch black. And then once you get through that layer, you're essentially in a night dive. So we went with torches, of course, and when you look up, it's quite stunning because suddenly you get the silhouettes of all these trees against kind of like a green backdrop, which feels like it's the sky. So it's like you're suddenly in this kind of like Tim Burton movie where everything's black and then you've got this green, cloudy, foggy sky on top of you, surrounded by dead trees. But then you sometimes see like, leaves just like suspended in midair. It's quite surreal, for sure. Anyway, you will stay there very little because of the depth. So you will cross again the hydrogen sulfide layer and then again see the beautiful underwater river come up again, which after being like in the dark, it's like, whoa, light, very beautiful. And then you'll spend some time circulating the cenote, looking at the walls and just reveling in its magnificence. Now, Maravilla is a very different cenote. Maravilla is actually part of something called the Ruta de los Cenotes, or Road of the Cenotes, which contains more than 12 different sinkholes that are open to tourists. So it is a bit like a fun theme park as you go down this road and you see like this cenote and that cenote and all of these things. So closer to that kind of like Playa del Carmen area and to other sinkholes like Dos Ojos. Maravilla is also about 60 meters deep, as I mentioned. And unlike Dos Ojos and Chacmol, which are more like, tunnels and whatnot, this one, like other cenotes like El Pit, is almost cathedral-like because it's this massive cavern. So you have like this not very wide entrance point at the top. It's quite a small sinkhole if you look at it from surface level. And then you go down, but then it kind of like expands, kind of like a bell-shaped cavern. So when you go down and then you kind of like go towards the side, closer to the wall, and you look up, you see this beautiful light beams and light shards just like coming down in a divine way. And then you see everything kind of like dark along to the sides. It is quite stunning. Maravilla means marvelous. It is quite marvelous, if I must say. Maravilla also has a nitrogen sulfide layer at the very bottom, which again gives it that kind of like eerie, otherworldly feeling, especially when you're looking at other divers swimming through and just looking at the stunning beauty of it all. Again, as I mentioned with the skeletons, these caves are old, like old. So we were paying attention to the walls, and you can actually see fossils there that have been there for a million years. And I was lucky enough to see a megalodon tooth encrusted in one of the walls. So it's awe-inducing because you're swimming there and you're like suddenly realize this. You're surrounded by history essentially, and you just feel so small, because there's so much beauty all around, and it's just stunning. One thing that I would say for both of these cenotes, because they're quite deep, it's easy to lose sense of space. So you really want to be checking your computer to control your buoyancy. Not so much because you're in confined spaces, but because it's easy to lose track of where you are, and you will have to adjust it when you're crossing that hydrogen sulfide layer in Angelita. Maravilla, you don't go down all the way to the hydrogen sulfide layer, but it's so big that you can easily lose track of where you are. So keep tabs on your computer. The other thing I'd like to stress around controlling your buoyancy is these are very fragile ecosystems, and as I mentioned, really, really important. So please don't touch anything. Like, look, but don't touch. It's just good manners. And like if you don't control your buoyancy that well, you run the risk of hitting something and then breaking a stalactite or a stalagmite, which again, they've been here for like millions of years. So just know your limits and take care of the place around you because it's beautiful and precious. Usually dive operators include all the gear rentals, so you don't have to worry about bringing your own gear or anything like that. I like to bring my own mask, my own dive computer, the gear that I know and trust. But they will provide you with wetsuits, they will provide you with the tanks, they will provide you with the BCDs, regulators, all of that. So no need to be carrying around extra stuff. The water temperature is cold for Caribbean standards, not so cold for Melbourne standards. So it's sitting around 24 degrees, and they do give you like 5 mil wetsuits, which I thought was a bit much. But look, I'm not going to complain, you're not going to be cold. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and do let me know if there's any other places you'd like me to review. If you have been to any sinkholes in Yucatan Peninsula, I'd love to hear your experiences on the comments below. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. See you next time!